You're listening to the Huddle Up Podcast with Chad Jensen and Zack Kelberman. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com and sound off. And now it's time to drop some knowledge.
Okay, we are live, but we have to let the stream breathe, as is tradition, and there's a reason, there's a rhyme why we have to do it. I'm getting 5 green check marks, though, so we're good to go. Welcome in, everybody, to the Huddle Up Podcast, presented, as always, by Mile High Huddle, powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me, as always, my partner in crime, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, as we conveyed to our great community last night, Justin Strnad was injured, the linebacker, rookie 5th-round pick, in yesterday's and Sunday's practice. And although Vic Fangio, when he met with the media following Sunday's practice, was kind of, I wouldn't say dismissive, but he just didn't know anything. And what we were hearing, it didn't sound serious. Well, unfortunately, mid-morning news breaks. He's going to need wrist surgery, and he's done for the year. What was your gut reaction?
I mean, it went from 0 to 100 real quick, Chad. I thought it'd be like a little minor injury, maybe out for a couple weeks. Now he's out for the entire season. It really, really sucks. I know injuries are unavoidable. They're inevitable. They're part of the game. But this is a guy who's the future at the position for the Denver Broncos. He was finally going to be the answer when he was on the field to their longtime Achilles heel, which was pass coverage from an inside linebacker. He was the guy stationed next to A.J. Johnson for the long term. And now it just gets delayed for another season, it looks like. Another year of Todd Davis starting, another year Josie Jewell as the backup. It really sucks. I'm really mad about this for Strnad, mad about this for the Broncos defense. But you know what? What are you going to do? You have to just look out. I think they have to supplement the position, though. I think they need to add another veteran body out there. They can't have Josie Jewell as a lone backup and players like Justin Hollins and Josh Watson. Now you have to have a veteran with Todd Davis also hurting.
Yeah, that brings up a point that kind of irks me a little bit, as anyone who read my article today on Fangio's remarks about Justin Hollins probably picked up on. Let me say this first. I like the idea that when there is a need, they look to promote someone internally and solve that issue, solve that need, fill that hole internally first. That I admire. I do. I really do. But we've seen from Justin Hollins last year that he's not cut out for off-ball linebacker. Zack, we haven't seen one iota, one single play, not one inkling of any evidence that Justin Hollins is an NFL caliber inside linebacker. The one play or two that he made last year as a rookie, and I get it, the Broncos put a lot on his plate as a rookie, asking him to learn 2 positions, which we criticized and we had our misgivings at the time for a reason. The 1 or 2 plays he did make, Zack, came as an edge defender. He did, I think, post 1 sack last year as an edge defender. I don't understand, Zack, what Fangio sees in Justin Hollins. I get as far as being an off-ball linebacker. I get that he's smart. I get that they covet his length and what that could do to help them against tight ends. But where he lacks as a run defender, which is significant. I mean, he is not instinctual. He doesn't play fast. He's slow to the ball. All those limitations, now just apply him also to being a coverage guy. The length doesn't really help you, Zack, when the synapses aren't firing quickly and you're not playing with speed and alacrity. And I just don't understand what this team sees in the idea of Justin Hollins playing inside linebacker.
It reminds me a lot, and I know I'm grabbing the low-hanging fruit here. It reminds me a lot of DeMarcus Walker trying him at outside linebacker and defensive end. It's like, why are you putting so much on one young player's plate? Have him learn one position, master that, instead of being a master of none like Justin Hollins is. To me, he's more of an edge guy than an off-ball guy, but even so, you can't have an experiment right now when your only dependable backup is Josie Jewell. Davis is hurt, Strnad's hurt, Johnson's still fairly young and unproven. You have to get some veteran depth in there and not rely on guys who are projects like Hollins and Watson. You gotta solidify that spot in Vic Fangio's defense.
Maybe Justin Strnad needs to take on the mindset Dave Glassman here on Facebook is putting forth, which is that Seahawks linebacker plays with one arm. Put a cast on it and get out there. Well, unfortunately, the one thing you're missing, Dave, I get the sentiment. What's his name, Zach?
Shaquille Griffin.
Thank you. I'm a little bit under the weather today, gang. It's not the word that should go unmentioned. I know this for a fact. Our family's been tested. But I am a little under the weather with just your common garden variety head cold. So bear with me a little bit. I'm not quite as sharp as I might normally be, despite all the Sudafed and caffeine flowing through my blood right now. But when it comes to moving forward with this thing and the one arm, talking about Griffin and, slap a cast on him and get him out there. We've seen players do that where they cast up and just go out there. We don't know quite what the severity of his injury is. And the one thing he's shown so far, I think, Zach, it's safe to say, this kid, Strnad, has shown that he has a fit. He has a place with Fangio's defense long term. And so how badly do you want to roll the dice on compromising that? Because the Broncos tried to rush Shane Ray when Shane Ray had that persistent wrist injury that just haunted his final 2 years as a Bronco, and it ended up blowing up in the team's face and basically squandered what was a first-round pick with a lot of potential and bright side. So I can understand why the Broncos would rather just take the approach, Zach, of let's get him his surgery, let's get him healed up, and we'll live to fight another day.
Yeah, different positions, but also Phillip Lindsay as well with that wrist. I think the Broncos are being tentative with those kind of injuries. And like you mentioned, why rush him back this year? He wasn't going to be a starter out of the gates. Todd Davis and Johnson held down those spots. He was going to compete for a backup role and play some specials, but you can allow him now that he's hurt, unfortunately, to kind of just take a year off, redshirt this season, and hopefully come back 100% next offseason and compete for a starting job, which I think will be vacant with Davis's release. So it sucks for now for Strnad, but at least the future is bright for him, and at least the Broncos know they have a guy in the system already who looks like he's the future at ILB.
We want to get to some of the options. For now, it seems that the Broncos are intent on kind of churning the bottom of the roster with Hollins and seeing what shakes out between him and Watson, Josh Watson, the second-year former undrafted rookie from Colorado State, and then also Joe Jones, who I really liked for a long time. I still am intrigued by Joe Jones, but for whatever reason, he's just not been able to, despite some situations where opportunity has knocked and the team has needed to turn to its depth, he's not been able to garner that trust quite yet from the coaching staff. And I can only intimate from that there's a reason, right? There's something missing that he's not bringing to the table, but he's still an option. He's on the roster, and I think he has some coverage chops if he were to be used on defense. And there are 5 options the Broncos could turn to off roster, guys that are on the street right now. We're going to get to those, discuss each one here in just a second. First, gang, we got to run through some quick matters of business very quickly. Make sure you know how to find us on social media, especially on Twitter. Make sure you're following the podcast account at Huddle Up Pod. That's how you keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with the show in real time. And then also at Mile High Huddle. You get those 2 boxes checked, so to speak, and you are not going to miss anything as it relates to this pod or breaking Broncos news and analysis. And then, Zach, we got to give our great community a gentle reminder to check out the merch store. Head on over to huddleuppod.com and get your swag on. You got hats, the Mile High Huddle trucker hat. You got the white Football Priest t-shirt that Zach's wearing, the Football Priest Huddle Up podcast hat that he's sporting backwards right now. And, the Zachary Smouse, who we had on the show last night, he designed a great Let 'em Hate shirt. There's our Zach's Let 'em Hate shirt. A little something for everybody, mugs, hoodies, face masks. Check it out. It's another way that you can support what we're doing here at MHH. And then also, no matter what, though, if you're not in a position to patronize the merch store, it's all good. We're just happy to have you here in the stream with us, or if you're listening after the fact. But no matter how you are enjoying this podcast, each one of you can do these 3 things. Make sure you're subscribed, like this video or like this episode. And if you really want to help us out, share it out there. Help Mile High Huddle and help the Huddle Up podcast continue to grow and reach new like-minded listeners just like you. And then one last thing here, gang. I want to draw our attention to our Facebook community. Our supporters, our official MHH supporters on Facebook, this is a very new thing. This is like the super chat of Facebook. Continues to grow, and we want to tip our cap to the supporters who have jumped on and gotten right in line with us and supporting us as soon as we put this out there. I'm going to put the link if you're on Facebook and maybe you don't use YouTube as much. Our Facebook community is vast. We have about 87,000 followers and members of that community. head on over if you want. I'm going to put the link here in the chat, or just go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. You'll see that big blue button to become a supporter. Just another way that you can support what we're doing here at Mile High Huddle. And of course, we appreciate, and it's a shout out to each one of our Facebook supporters.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, Zach, I'm going to bring up a graphic here of 5 options. Now, some of these are suggested by other mediaites, other fans as well have suggested some of these, and 1 or 2 are names that just kind of make sense if you're going to look for off-the-roster help. Vontaze Burfict, Alec Ogletree, Darren Lee, and Darren Lee's obviously a name a lot of fans were clamoring for about a year and a half ago. Nigel Bradham and Wesley Woodyard, the former Bronco, really kind of long in the tooth, but he's out there. Of those 5 names, Zach, is there one that you would like to see come in and kind of play that I can be your starter, be that Corey Nelson, but be more of an effective version of that, be the vet guy that can come in and you need me to be depth, I'll be depth. You need me to play starter snaps, I can do it.
My guy here is Nigel Bradham. Everywhere he's been, Philadelphia, New Orleans, he's always drawn positive marks from Pro Football Focus. I know not the end-all, be-all, but he's a pretty well-rounded player. He does his job well. He's like Todd Davis, but a little better in pass coverage. Great in the locker room, veteran guy, good to have in the building. Nigel Bradham is my guy here. Woodyard's like 50 years old. Vontaze Burfict is a head case, Chad. Darren Lee and Ogletree a little too small to play full-time inside linebacker. Bradham for sure is my guy here. I hope the Broncos would bring him in.
I concur, although it would be cool to get Wesley Woodyard back here. He's just too old. He's just past his prime. I mean, Charlie, I like Woodyard as much as the next guy, and he had one of the greatest individual linebacker seasons in Broncos history. In fact, before we went live, I was talking with John Buona Beast, and I said it was the 2014 season, but I lied. It was actually 2012. His season for the Broncos was phenomenal. He contributed to that defense that helped the Broncos basically win 11 in a row after Peyton Manning kind of figured things out. And it was a great season. He eventually left, signed with Tennessee, never quite reached the heights that I think could have if he would have stayed in Denver. But at the same time, that Brandon Marshall and Danny Trevathan duo was pretty formidable, at least that one full season they got together as starters in 2015. But now I digress. I have to concur with you, though, Zach. If I'm looking at those 5 names, I'm going with Nigel Bradham. And one other name that John brought up that could be an option as well is former first-round pick safety turned linebacker, former Alabama Crimson Tide, Mark Barron. What are your thoughts on the idea of bringing in a guy like Barron who's now burned out, washed out from 3 different squads?
You said it right there. I mean, he was supposed to be the next great, transcendent player in the fact that he was a dime backer. He wasn't a linebacker and he wasn't a safety. He was a hybrid kind of guy. And he was with the Rams and he had some hype and he never really lived up to that, Chad. He never lived up to his billing or his draft status or his Alabama pedigree. I don't want a tweener playing inside linebacker with Davis being injured, 2nd year in a row now with a calf injury. Strnad's down. A.J. Johnson's still a young guy, but you don't have anyone else behind them. Nigel Bradham is consistent. He's reliable. He's a veteran. He's a plus athlete across the board. As much as intriguing as it would be to see, like a Stuart Cravens, that's what, these players remind me of, Mark Barron and Darren Lee. I don't want a smaller guy. They've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I want a legit linebacker in the system, and Nigel Bradham is a real deal, true inside linebacker.
I have to concur. Of those 5 names, honestly, the 2 that would make the most sense to me, I know a lot of people gravitate toward Ogletree. His days in the sun are behind him as well. There's a few former first-round picks actually in that collection, that loose collection of names. But for me, it's Nigel and Mark Barron, just because of what he might be able to bring as a dime backer. But I'm not enthused about it, to be honest with you. I think probably the wisest move at this stage is to do what you can to get Todd Davis healthy and hold on for dear life and knock on wood, whatever you got to do. Sacrifice a goat, whatever you got to do to make sure nothing happens to Josie Jewell or Alexander Johnson, because I think you can get by. I mean, honestly, even if Davis's injury was longer term, if the prognosis was, he's going to miss the first quarter of the season, I think, and in fact, I'll read a quote here from Fangio that kind of explains why, but I think you could get by with Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson. But if you have to go any deeper than that, Zach, you get into some really thin ice. Here's what Fangio said about Jewell, where he can improve, what he's done so far in camp this year. And, of course, this is his third season, but it's his second year in Fangio's scheme. Here's what Fangio said, Zach, quote, "I think he's had a good camp so far. He's showing the benefit of being here a second year. The system hasn't changed much. He's a smart player to begin with. When he knows more of all the fine things, he's one of those players that can put it to good use. He's had a good camp. We're pleased with where he's at," close quote. And the intimation there being that he does know the fine things. So he can step in and, make the calls and make the checks, and he knows those things. Whereas guys like Hollins, who, even though this is also his second year, he wasn't committed fully to off-ball linebacker. And this year, the Broncos kind of learned their lesson, I thought, from last year. Their plan was to play Hollins exclusively at the edge, and now they've had to kind of reverse course and put him back on the off-ball. But Josh Watson, the silver lining, Zach, also his second year with Fangio, and Joe Jones as well.
I know Vic is Vic, but it wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement on Josie Jewell. He's pretty much saying he's a heady, smart player when he wants to be or what he could be, and when he gets the defense down, he can contribute. It didn't seem like this is a real deal week one starter that they're comfortable in, nor should they be. Josie Jewell is a career backup. We all thought he was going to be better. He was like the Jake Butt of that draft class. Good value, good pick at that spot, and he was going to be a borderline starter. It never really turned out that way. He's a good backup to have, but they cannot rely on him, Chad. He's going to get picked and picked and picked on in coverage, especially in pass coverage. They have to get a veteran in there, and at least for depth purposes, at least if you have a lot of young guys, who is the veteran if Todd Davis is out? A.J. Johnson among that linebacker group. I mean, you got to have some mentorship in there. Not only is Nigel Bradham a good athlete, a good linebacker, he's a good leader. To me, it's a no-brainer.
I wonder where Brandon Marshall is right now.
I was thinking that too.
For what it's worth, really quick, the Wizzy and the Hizzy. Mundungus jumps in on Super Chat. Appreciate you, Mike.
Thank you.
He says, any chance we bring back Al Wilson, John Mobley, or Ian Gold? Yeah, those guys are on they're living their, retirement days. They're in their golden years when it comes to linebackers. But man, there was a time that was a trio that was legit for the Denver Broncos. I liked in particular also from about 04 through 05, the Al Wilson, DJ Williams, and Ian Gold linebacker trio. But yeah, in a perfect world, heck yeah, you'd want to get a Al Wilson, Smoke Dog Wilson in his prime out on the field, no doubt. Zach, we got to say thank you to Mark Langley jumping in to show some extreme generosity. I told you, don't worry about it, Mark. And here he is doing his thing. He says, for Zachary, and of course, this is in reference to Zach Smouse, who joined us last night on I want to say it was our 9th Superstar segment. He says, I shed a tear for this special person, and he is very special. Zach, we're blessed to have him on the show, and people just were blown away by the cult of personality that Zachary is. And I can't tell you how many listeners and members of the community, both known and, not necessarily names you see in the chat stream all the time, but just how many listeners of this podcast reached out to us to say how moved they were by that pod, how moved they were and just inspired by Zachary. I've multiple times I had people say goosebumps, like Mark saying here, shed a tear, people getting verklempt, and just because it's so inspiring seeing what he does in his life and what he brings to the table. And I could go on, but it really was a special watershed moment for the podcast having Zachary on.
It was, and I was going to say, we're still getting tweets a day later that he was so great and we have to bring him back, and he absolutely was. And Zachary, if you're listening, you killed it, man. Everyone loves you here. You're a very, very knowledgeable, true Broncos fan. And I found myself inspired by his answer, chat. I found myself hanging on every word. I mean, he was a great guest, great guy, great individual, and you're very, very loved and respected in this community, Zach.
We look forward to the day when we can get Smouse back in the house. It's going to be great. We'll bring you back on the show in the very near future. Christy, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate the kind words. And as always, we appreciate your support. Yes. It means everything to us. We got John on Facebook saying, good evening, fellas. My wife and I got our shirts today. Appreciate it. Bummed about Strnad. Just wondering if we will look at free agents for a replacement. I don't know, Zach. I haven't heard anything quite yet in terms of the Broncos looking outside the building, but as much as I can say on one hand, I like that they're looking internally first for solutions. On the other, the flip side of that coin is, you don't want to wait till the 11th hour and repeat Corey Nelson bloody history like you saw that first 2 games, especially the opener against Oakland last year. It was brutal how bad Corey Nelson was. So I guess the point being is, if you are going to look outside the roster to bolster this unit with some veteran experience, the sooner the better.
I don't see how you can. And the same thing, the Broncos waited and waited and waited, and they were lucky DeMar Dawson was available. Otherwise, they'd have to settle like they might settle for a guy like Nigel Bradham, who would be a good pickup at this stage. They don't have any in-house options, Chad. They don't really have anyone they can depend on. We all talk about Devin Bush last year in that trade, and we're all happy that it worked out with Fant, Reisner, and Locke, but they don't have a tried-and-true, up-and-coming, young, exciting inside linebacker. They need that guy in the building, if only for depth purposes. And Darren Lee, it doesn't move the needle for me. Ogletree, those guys, the only guy among a picked-over market at this point, August 24th, is Nigel Bradham. You could do worse.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Cameron on Facebook says he got his Let Him Hate shirt today. Appreciate it. That's great to hear, my friend. Appreciate
Hope you like it, Cameron.
James Campbell, you and I are sharing a brain. As much as I like, again, I respect that they're looking in-house with Justin Hollins and just looking for solutions that are already there. But, Zach, Joe Jones and Josh Watson should be the immediate beneficiaries of what's going on right now with the new need, the vacuum that's created by Strnad and Davis's injury. Joe Jones is a guy who I think has more potential than he's really been able to showcase, at least playing snaps on defense. As a special teams maven, he was great the first year he was in Denver. Last year, he had quite a few missed tackles, which were very disappointing, and I think that might have contributed to why he didn't see some snaps on defense when there was opportunities, especially early in the season. But Josh Watson's been a guy that everyone I've talked to who's been at the daily training camp practices, they're telling me Josh Watson is a guy who's just been around the ball constantly. He is always where the action's at. And those are the type of things you want to hear about an off-ball linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, he is running, though, third team or second team, so it's like you got to take it with a grain of salt, all relatively speaking. Yeah, but Joe Jones not getting playing time reminds me of Deontay Spencer not getting playing time on offense, not getting receiver playing time. Some of these guys are just cut out to be niche rotational players. Joe Jones is great on special teams. Obviously, the coaching staff doesn't think he can be a full-time inside linebacker or at least a primary reserve. You know who would be great to have right now, though, Chad? And that's Will Parks. You know, just to play some inside linebacker, some dime backer. He was a great third safety. Obviously, he got a good offer in Philadelphia, but having those guys on the roster, they proved to be invaluable.
Yes, indeed. It's a cool story for Will Parks to go back to his hometown, play for the Eagles. It's very much a prove-it deal. I don't think the Broncos really pursued re-signing him all that seriously just because – you know, you've got Kareem Jackson and you've got a lot of money tied up in that secondary, especially with bringing on and absorbing A.J. Bouyer's contract. So, but I'm with you, man. That versatility could be much utilized right now. We got Jason Metz jumping in on Super Chat, Bonafide Superstar. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
He says, love you guys. Keep doing what you do. Hashtag Broncos country. Appreciate that, my friend. Means a lot to us. And Jason, I don't know if you're on Twitter, but be sure to, if you are, connect with us, reach out, let us know if you're, a lot of times, you know, when we tell people to reach out and connect, whatever the YouTube name is or the Facebook handle or whatever it might be that we're used to seeing in the chat stream, it's a completely different handle on Twitter. So spell it out for us. Let us know exactly who you are, and it'll help. Christy says, injuries are the name of the game right now. It always sucks to lose guys this soon, but also we have a chance to prepare. So you got 3 weeks till the season opener, literally 3 weeks from today. And, you know, the Broncos, this playing field has been leveled when it comes to the injury bug because of the word that shall go unnamed. All teams are dealing with, to varying degrees, I guess I should say, but all teams are dealing with a sudden kind of spike in injuries. And Zach, for the Broncos, after seeing these last 3 days, just dudes dropping left and right, today there were 11 guys that did not practice. 11 Broncos didn't practice today. Vic Fangio decided to pump the brakes. And what they did today was, whereas the last few days they've been steadily ramping up and increasing the intensity in the workouts on the field, he dialed it back. It was basically a glorified walkthrough, a little bit more intense, a little bit faster paced than a traditional walkthrough, but it was basically a walkthrough just because they want to get through today. They want to get through tomorrow, and then they have a break, a day off, their next day off, and they don't need any more bodies hitting the training room.
It's a good point by Christie that better the injuries, unfortunate as they are, happen now and not mid-September or October during the stretch run of the regular season. There's no good way to spin an injury, but you have to wonder why the Broncos are continually dealing with and plagued by certain kinds of injuries. You have to wonder about the training regimen. You have to wonder about how Vic Fangio pushes them in practice, padded practices, 2-hour practices. He's really hard on them, and it makes them better overall, but it comes at the cost of health, and that's why you see these wrist injuries. It's why you see these soft tissue injuries. It's unfortunate, but if there's any positive silver lining, it's better now than 2 months from now.
Let me run through for our audience here the transcript at the top of Fangio's presser today after practice. Hey, Coach, why wasn't Mike Purcell out there today? This is after he kind of laid it out on Strnad. He goes, oh, he just had some calf tightness. We're just being conservative with him. Well, what about Tim Patrick? Same. Soft tissue. What about Devontae Bosby? Same. Elijah Holder? Same. Malik Carney? Oh, well, he was actually sick. Not the word that shall go unmentioned, sick, regular sick. And it was just a litany, Zach, of injured Broncos today. So Manny Wise wants to know, could Strnad be back after week 10? The IR rules in the NFL are stupid. When a player is ready, let him play. That is what they're paid to do. I agree with you that IR rules, I don't understand how it helps the competitive product that is the NFL and makes it a better product on the sports landscape. But to the point, though, the Broncos can bring 2 players off of injured reserve, as is negotiated under the new CBA. You saw it last year with Tim Patrick. You saw it with Drew Lock. Could Strnad be back after week 10? Not according to Fangio. That's not something they're really looking at now. He basically said, quote, it was a dislocation that in and of itself wasn't going to put him out for the year, but then there were other complications. He had it operated on, he had to get it operated on. He'll be out for the entire season, close quote. So who knows? If he makes a miraculous turnaround, maybe it becomes an issue the Broncos could look at, but it doesn't seem like whatever they're seeing from the inside looking out, it doesn't seem like a viable thing that they're hanging any hopes on.
If this was Bradley Chubb or Justin Simmons, you'd probably bring him back, but he's not a starter. He's a very, very unproven guy, obviously being a rookie. He was going to be a minor contributor starting out. So the Broncos, I guess they're not really sweating his loss too much. They're not going to push him and risk a more serious injury or re-aggravation. Like Chad mentioned at the top, get him healthy and hope he comes back good in 2021 and go forward. So, no IR to return for Strnad. It's IR done for the year.
Bronco Batman jumping in on Super Chat. Appreciate you, my friend. He says, sup, fellas? Bronco games almost here. Y'all see the new Batman trailer? I did. Looks amazing. Keep up the great work, guys, and go Broncos. Zach, I'm probably more of a movie buff than you are. I saw the trailer today because I was just kind of chilling, thumbing through my phone, not feeling so hot today. And I did see it. It's the dude, what's his name? Robert Pattinson? The dude from the the
Twilight movie?
Yes. He's the new Batman. And so I was skeptical, but then again, I was extremely skeptical long ago when the news broke that Heath Ledger was going to play the Joker in a Batman movie. I was like, that guy? You kidding me? And then he just knocks it out of the park. So I remain open, of course, to it being decent. And it was an okay trailer with the song by Nirvana, Something in the Way, kind of reimagined and playing in the background, kind of set the tone. It's interesting. And by the way, there's a shot of Colin Farrell. We all know who Colin Farrell is. He plays the Penguin. He's the new Penguin. Remember Danny DeVito Penguin from the second Batman movie? It's Colin Farrell is the new Penguin, and they have got him in some prosthetics and makeup and stuff. You would never guess in a million years that was Colin Farrell. So I'm intrigued, though, Bronco Batman. That's all I'll really say, because this is, after all, a Bronco podcast.
It's not that I'm not a movie buff, but it seems like a good movie hasn't come out in a decade, Chad. It seems like the glory days of movies are far and gone. Just like Jared Leto was the Joker and now Robert Pattinson's Batman. What's going on? I mean, Heath Ledger was the best Joker ever. You guys can fight me on that. It's not a hot take. That's legit, real deal. It is a football podcast, but Colin Farrell comes to mind, Chad. I don't know if you saw the movie Phone Booth, little kind of a smaller movie. Great movie. Yep. He also killed it in Horrible Bosses, the first one, he was great in that movie. I love Colin Farrell.
I think my favorite Colin Farrell movie is In Bruges, and it's just a weird European comedy. It's more of a dramedy, I should say. It's dramatic, some heavy topics and things that take place, but him and Brendan Gleeson are in that movie, and it's pretty sweet. Miller 707 Champ jumping in. What's up, everyone? Hope all is well. Go Broncos. Chad and Zach, you rock. Very kind, dude. Appreciate the kind words, and it's good to see you in the stream. We got the man, Mike Evans, rocking it here on Super Chat. Appreciate you, my friend. Good to see you in the stream, as always. With our depth on the D-line, would you trade Shelby Harris for a coverage linebacker? If you could get a good coverage linebacker, a proven guy, I would do it. I really would, because Draymond Jones has been killing it in camp this year. And I think it's only a matter of time, probably this year, before he starts eating out of Shelby Harris's bowl anyway. So if you could, I would be all about that, Zach.
I just don't like taking from a strength to make up for a weakness, because that strength becomes a weakness. I mean, let's say Draymond Jones gets injured and Shelby Harris is gone, then who's playing? Right now, it's a strength because of the depth they have there behind Shelby Harris. So I wouldn't do that. They can get by. I mean, if they got by last year with Davis and Johnson, they can get by this year, maybe for week 1 with Josie Jewell. They have Davis coming back. They have some younger guys. Hopefully they just sign Nigel Bradham, not make this too complicated, Chad. He's out there. He's a good guy for the scheme. It doesn't have to be one or the other. They can have both Harris and a linebacker.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
So this is Andy has a question about our merch. He says, do you have any T-shirts with anything on the front and back of the T-shirt? Both sides is what I'm asking.
I'm wearing
Thanks, guys. I think both shirts that Zach has designed have front and back. So the Let 'Em Hate with the 3s in it, Zach designed, that has front and back. And the Football Priest T-shirt he's wearing right now has Football Priest on the front and the Huddle Up Podcast logo on the back. Check it out. All right, let's see here. Yeah, our friend Don wants to know, hey, what about Devin Bush getting a trade from Pittsburgh? But, of course, he punctuates it with the LOL. That ain't going to happen. Pittsburgh's not parting with Devin Bush anytime in the near future. He showed strong early on and then kind of faded, did Devin Bush as a rookie, but he's still got a really high ceiling. So
he wasn't even the best Devin in that draft class among inside linebackers, though. It'd be Devin White. Rather have him.
Christy, hope you feel better soon, Chad. Don't OD on the scissor.
The lean.
I'll try and stay away from it.
Sprite and Jolly Ranchers.
So while I catch up here really quick in the stream, we got to hear from Bryce Callahan and Jerry Jeudy today after practice. And it was interesting hearing from both of them. But, Zach, what really jumped out to me, I had a story I published right before we went live tonight, which is one of the reasons we were running a little bit behind on this very topic, where Jerry Jeudy, so we talked about this, everyone remembers, back in July, Emmanuel Sanders and Jerry Jeudy got together and had a little workout session, and whoever was, Judy's media people, his PR social media guy, was there to film the whole thing, cut a nice little video edit, and publish that after the fact as a fun little hype video. Well, from the outside looking in, you would assume that because Emmanuel Sanders keeps a home in Denver, it was Jeudy, the rookie, reaching out to the vet and maybe a rite of passage, maybe paying his respects because he's wearing his number now, 10. Emmanuel Sanders wore 10 in Denver, and now Judy's wearing 10. I think it would have been easy for everyone to assume that it was Jeudy that kind of sparked that meeting, but it was actually the other way around. And I found it to be quite interesting that Jerry Jeudy laid out kind of how that came to be, and the fact that Emmanuel Sanders was seeking advice and tips and picking his brain on route running, not the other way around. Here's what he said real quick, Zach, quote, "He just messaged me and said he wanted to come work out with me. He sent me his location, and I went over there, and we worked out. He was picking little details of my game and seeing how I run routes and things like that. I was learning a little bit from him as well. It was more of a, what are you doing? Let's go work out type thing, really." But close quote, Zach, I think it's funny. He says he was picking little details of my game And then he goes on, I was learning a little bit from him as well.
Yeah, it's a compliment though of the highest magnitude of an accomplished, former Pro Bowl receiver Emmanuel Sanders recognizing and acknowledging that Jerry Jeudy's route running out of the box from day one is just elite. It's supreme. And it's going to be fun to watch that route running on display. And if he is already garnering that praise now, Chad, can you imagine 2-3 years from now when he's a polished guy, when he has a chance to blossom in an NFL system? Jerry Jeudy is going to be a star for the Broncos, and I think everyone is kind of slowly realizing that, former players included.
Shout out to Eclipse Stormborn, who's joining us. Y'all know Troy, who joined us on the show a few weeks back. Good to see you, my friend. And I think we connected on Facebook today, if I'm not mistaken, so it's good to connect with you. We got Terry Randall, north of the 49th parallel, proving, as always, up in Canada, that Broncos country is not a geographic location. It's a state of being. Really appreciate your support, as always, my friend. And hashtag football priest, hashtag state of being, hashtag Broncos world. Love it, my friend. Thank you. King Hicks is back in the house. There's a name we haven't seen for a while. What's good? Great to have you back, my friend. Good to see you. Seriously, welcome. Miller707 wants to know, what would it cost to trade for Danny Trevathan? So the Bears, didn't they just re-up him, if I'm not mistaken? Didn't he just sign a new deal? I can do some research on that, but what would your thoughts be on trying to maybe move some mountains to get Danny back in the orange and blue, who we saw those 4 years 3 years, I should say, he played for Fangio, played very, very well.
I mean, it's no guarantee, though, that's going to transfer in 2020. So why give up compensation for an unknown when you can save the draft pick and save the cap hit and just sign Nigel Bradham at a much lower cost? He was great for the Broncos, but as we've also seen, Chad, Elway has a proclivity against reuniting with his former players. It's very, very rare. So I don't see him trading for Trevathan, giving up a draft pick, and taking on his contract when he has young guys on the roster or street free agents who are much cheaper. So
he is on the books this year. He did get a new deal. And this year, excuse me, his cap hit is only $4 million. So I'm looking at this contract, though, on Spot Track. It's not really adding up to me, to be honest with you. I wonder if there's some typos on this thing. But nevertheless, in a perfect world, sure, bring in Danny Trevathan. But you think the Bears are going to be willing to give up on Danny Trevathan when they just re-upped with him? I don't see it happening without the Broncos paying an extremely high premium. And look, there was a reason they let Danny T go. First off, his profile was extremely high, being on that world champion defense that just stole the show in the 2015 playoffs. And on top of that, he was only 1 year and some change removed from a grievous, scary knee injury that actually required him to have cadaver parts put into his knee. And thank God he's been able to bounce back from that and overcome it and continue on with his playing career. But there was a reason why the Broncos decided to throw in with Brandon Marshall instead of Danny Trevathan. And I think both Zach and I would tell you that they probably picked the wrong guy in terms of throwing in.
Got that right.
I can understand their hesitancy as well.
I mean, kind of like picking Derek Wolfe over Malik Jackson. I think that was a mistake as well. I mean, Elway's had his misses, but he's slowly kind of making up for him with his home runs last couple years. I just don't see a reunion between Trevathan and with the Broncos, considering, like you said, Chad, what it would cost to get him from the Bears, who just re-signed him.
All right, so we got Brett on Facebook with a question here. Even though Kareem Jackson played well last year, you think we give Earl Thomas a look? Just don't know how he'd do in the locker room, though. Yeah, Earl Thomas has developed now a reputation for being a malcontent, unfortunately, and having a authority complex with coaches. I don't know that that's something you want to throw into a young locker room where they're trying to build their own culture and create something new. You just don't want to roll that dice. Now, the Broncos have a really well-respected secondary coach in Ronaldo Hill, former player, in fact, former Bronco player who signed as a free agent here back in the McDaniels days. And, he was okay as a free safety. Brian Dawkins was a strong safety. That was Denver's starting safety tandem for, 2-3 year window, whatever that was. But again, why would you want to – I get that Earl Thomas, everyone thinks of those days on the Legion of Boom and he's a perennial Pro Bowler and a perennial guy former first-round pick as well, but he's not the same player he was when the Broncos got their lunch eaten by the Seahawks in Super Bowl 48. And why would you want to invite in any kind of new energy or factor that could fiddle with your chemistry and culture?
I mean, let's ignore the fact that Broncos have arguably the best safety tandem in the NFL with Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson. This is a guy in Earl Thomas who flipped off his own team while he was getting carted off the field. He was held at gunpoint by his wife. He punched a teammate in training camp and got released. He is literally not worth it. It's like having a pristine pool and then dumping a vat of pee into it. You don't want that contaminated in the locker room. As good as he used to be in Seattle, he's not that player anymore. You bring him aboard, then what do? Do you sit Justin Simmons? Do you sit Kareem Jackson? He would last about 5 minutes with Vic Fangio. It would not fly at all. Earl Thomas is not what the Broncos need. He is the last player the Broncos need. Give me Trey Marshall any day over Earl Thomas. Might sound like a bold take. I am dead serious.
Mundunga says, absolutely loving how much this pod has grown. There are more people watching this pod than there is hair on Juwan James. Now, that's true. All it takes is one person watching this pod, and that's more hair than Juwan James has. But, the podcast really has, it's just a quick reflection here. Zach and I have been podcasting together for a few years now, and things, we did pretty well with it and sold sponsorships, had a pretty solid reach, did a good job with it. And then we decided to start doing it as a live podcast and capitalizing on our, what at the time was, I don't know, Zach, it was just over 2,000 subscribers I think we had on YouTube. And, we had our Facebook audience. We're like, let's spice things up, start doing things live. And once we made that decision and that shift, man, it rocketed this podcast into the stratosphere, and it just has continued to grow exponentially, literally. There's a little bit of a lull in June and July for everybody in sports media, when people, especially in the NFL landscape, where, that's just traditionally where things kind of die down. But it's already climbing right back. This thing is up. We're up, on the podcast side and on the live stream side, 40% right now, just over July. This thing is continuing to grow. And so it's all a credit to you guys and your word of mouth and you spreading it around and you guys just being as dedicated and passionate about what we're doing here and your team, the Denver Broncos. So credit to you guys.
Chad, what is the first word that comes out of our mouths when we click end broadcast? It's always wow. We're always literally blown away by the support and the devotion you guys show, and we did not expect in a million years. We're not even talking monetarily, just the day in and day out commitment and support you guys have shown. When we went to Super Chat, Chad and I were taking a gamble. We didn't know what it was going to be. We knew nothing about the platform, and you guys have really answered the call. And we have a store because of you guys. We're going 4 days a week because of you guys. We're giving back everything to you because you guys enable us to do this.
Amen, my brother. We got Steve Griffith, who is a superstar on YouTube for us in the community, and then he's also a supporter on Facebook. Much love to you, Steve. He says,
thank you, Steve.
Didn't catch the last podcast live, but it was definitely awesome seeing Zachary. Loved seeing his excitement while discussing our Broncos. It really was cool. And, yeah, the returns and the reviews keep coming in. Nothing but 5 stars on that episode. Chase Wellner with a football question. I think a lot of fans would be curious to know the answer here, and I got some deets for you. Has anyone heard about how DeMar Dotson is coming along? Well, that first week or so he was in Denver, he basically stayed with the third team. He was exclusively right tackle, third team. Today we got some movement, though, Zach. He's blocking on the second team, and there were some reps. In fact, today I talked to a guy where Drew Lock ended up taking a few snaps with the second team offensive line. So DeMar Dotson did it was just the way things rotated, but it's nothing to read into why Drew Lock was thrown with second team. Don't even read into that at all. But the bottom line being, though, the takeaway, DeMar Dotson has moved up the depth chart, and he was blocking a little bit for Drew Lock. Drew Lock getting some exposure, playing with him as the guy. So it seems like he's starting to, now that he's got his veteran legs underneath him, he's got a week in the saddle with this new team. The Broncos are seeing what a just sieve Elijah Wilkinson and Jake Rodgers have been at right tackle. It's only a brief matter of time, I think, Zach. I know the Broncos, in a perfect world, they want it to be Elijah Wilkinson that just takes hold of that job, and DeMar Dotson's simply the swing guy that's there in case of emergencies. But
no way.
That's just not who he is. And so you need to get DeMar Dotson out there. The sooner the better. Same with Lloyd Cushenberry.
It's just baffling. A guy with over 9 years of experience, 100 starts in the NFL, he's playing on the second team. I mean, if it's a matter of time and if it's inevitable, why not just do it now? You have Cushenberry getting first-team reps consistently now. He's going to be the starting center more than likely. The Broncos are showing their hand there, but not why at right tackle, not why with DeMar Dotson. I think you're spot on. I think they really want Wilkinson to win that job to kind of prove themselves right, that they didn't need another guy. They just went out and got one just for insurance purposes. That's how Elway thinks. That's how the Broncos operate. It would not shock me at all. But I'm holding firm. Come week one, come that Titans game, DeMar Dotson is the right tackle, and Wilkinson is where he belongs. On the bench.
Joseph Semadeni jumping in on Super Chat. Appreciate you, Joseph.
Thank you.
He says, hashtag state of being. Love it, baby. He says, if we did bring in a linebacker, would it be a 1-year prove-it deal? And how much could we spend on a guy like Nigel Bradham? Yeah, I mean, you've got some long-term options on the roster already. So Josie Jewell's got 1 more year before his rookie contract expires. Alexander Johnson, after this year, will become a restricted free agent, so he'll be under team control for 1 more year beyond this. Todd Davis will be a free agent after this season. So there is some, but then you also get Justin Strnad coming back next year. So there is some need for depth there. But, Zach, I would imagine anyone they bring in, similarly to what you saw him do with Corey Nelson last year, it would be a, hey, come in, help save the day. Here's a 1-year deal. You know, we'll see how it goes. I couldn't imagine it being much more than a veteran minimum type of thing.
For someone like Bradham, I would say what he got from the Saints, which I think was a 1-year, like $3.5 million contract. I think that's where they would go, and they have enough money, Chad, to do that. That's a drop in the bucket for what the Broncos have in cap space right now. And $3 million, same for DeMar Dotson. That little amount of money for a potential starter on August 24th, how do you say no to that? Why wouldn't you go do that?
Fair point. Real quick, the stream just did a jump on me. We got Mundungus jumping back in on Super Chat. Thank you, my friend. He says, James looks like he is the star of a safety video about not putting too much lighter fluid on a campfire. You know, it's weird seeing a dude without eyebrows. That's what I'll say. You get used to seeing people without, with the bicked heads and the bald heads and whatnot. Even I've gone with the buzzed head. I've never bicked my head, but I've buzzed my head at times as I started losing hair on top, getting close to 40. But bicking it, I never got into that. But when someone loses the eyebrows, Zach, that's when you're like, there's something off about this dude. It's not immediately apparent what it is, but, no eyebrow.
Yeah, we need like a coffee table book of all Mundungus's best Juwan James roasts. I think that would be a bestseller, Chad.
All right, real quick, John. The jump on that for me went from that last Mundungus super to BG's on Shelby Harris. So let me just take a quick peek, gang, on the backside on YouTube and see who is in between. Oh, no, we're good. We're right on schedule. Perfect. Let's grab BG. He says, thank you, by the way, Brian, thank you for the super chat and your consistent support, man. And it's been going on for a year now. You've been just a stud on super chat, so thank you. He says, Shelby Harris is hungry. No way would I trade him. He's playing for a contract. And that's true. He is in a contract year.
That's a good point.
And I think once the Broncos got his position right last year, because he was in a contract year last year, he played like a guy in a contract year. He ended up with 6 sacks, led the NFL in batted passes. So I get what you're saying, but if you could get a no-brainer option at off-ball linebacker, a proven veteran, I would consider it because of the depth, because Draymond Jones is playing – he's balling out.
It's a good point by Brian, though, because different from last year, Shelby Harris was greeted by a cold market. We were shocked, Chad. He literally got no nibbles except for the Colts, and he had to re-sign a prove-it deal with Denver. And he knows now 6 sacks is not going to be able to cut it for the contract and star power that he wants in the NFL. So he's motivated right now. He knows a 10-sack season would get him the contract he wants and the role he wants somewhere in the NFL. And if he has a 10-sack season, means the Broncos defense is balling. I would not trade Shelby. Too clutch.
Then we also got from BG here, and thank you again, Brian.
Yeah.
You don't think Vontaze Burfict has anything left, or you're worried about his problems?
Both.
Honestly, I'm more worried about the latter than I am the former. I bet you he can play just fine right now. I mean, he'd need some time to soak up a scheme, but he's an experienced veteran middle linebacker. I'm more worried about how he would contribute, similar to Earl Thomas, to the culture, and you're always worried about him destroying someone on the field and setting the team back at any given moment. And you can't foresee when those moments are going to come, Zach.
Yeah, if you wanted, some guy to give another guy concussion, Burfict is your guy. But other than that, I don't see what he has left. I mean, he's a free agent for a reason right now. He was good with the Bengals. He's definitely a tone setter. But like Chad just intimated, he's a locker room poison, similar to Earl Thomas. I don't want him anywhere near Denver's culture.
All right, I'm checking here. It's looking like a little bit of a problem making sure we're staying up to date on the Supers. KP in the house. What's up, my friend? Thank you for your generosity. And also, by the way, sent you an email last night. Hope you got a chance to see that. He says, I see the chalkboard, Zach. What's in store for us? X's and O's, a la Eric Trickle style. What do you got planned for that board? I know what you used it for last year, Zach, but what do you got planned for?
Yeah, anyone who watches the show, that was the whiteboard that was in back of here. I actually have story ideas on there. You can't really see it, but there's content ideas, story ideas, depth charts. It's hard kind of to cover and manage two teams, so getting some of the information out of my head is kind of useful. So putting it, getting my money's worth out of that, Chad. Those are not cheap at all.
I might have to get one of those, to be honest with you. I use a Google Doc for that type of stuff, ideas, brainstorming, little notes, things to circle back to for
it
content.
Becomes real when you write it down. Like you memorize it easier.
That's a good point. Black Knight jumping in with the super chat. Very generous, my friend. Thank you. It's good having you back in the chat streams. And as John says here, how goes the live gaming? Hope you're moving forward, doing well. Oh, he says went good. All right, good to hear.
Cool.
Chris Hernandez, who we are excited to have on the show Wednesday night. Looking forward to it, my friend. Jumping in on Super Chat. He says, I heard Dotson was playing with the twos today. Sounds promising. # moving on up. Yes, indeed. He was with the twos, and it's encouraging. It shows us that perhaps the Broncos have had a rhyme and a reason. They didn't just throw him back there. I think they just wanted him to acclimate. Being that he is an 11-year vet, he's up there. He's 34 years old. Like, let him kind of get his legs underneath him and then maybe start speeding things up in terms of leapfrogging up the depth chart.
I mean, can you imagine? I'm putting myself in his shoes. Can you imagine being an 11th year veteran, 100 career starts, and I'm running with 20, 21-year-olds on the second and third teams? I don't know what the Broncos are waiting for. Obviously, he's going to look good on the second string. He's not going to look bad. He should dominate these guys. Get him on the first string, get him with the starters, and let's get the offensive line solidified already. I mean, the season's around the corner. Let's go.
All right, let me see here. I'm trying to see. This is an interesting question, but I can't tell who it's from. This is coming from the stream that's in our MHH Superfan Facebook group. And if the user doesn't give StreamYard permission to show their Facebook profile, that won't show their name. So I don't know who's asking this, but he says, with our all-pro defense, with the pass rushers intact this year, could we rely exclusively on the pass rush scheme to pick up the slack and help out the linebacker core? I believe they can. Zach, and I think that there is some truth to that in terms of, the quicker the pass rush can get to the quarterback, the less pressure there is on linebackers in coverage, corners in coverage, the whole 9 yards. But what you're missing out there is the fact that base defense is a thing and base offense is a thing. And NFL teams, when they run the ball, typically they do it out of base defense. And that's when you need your linebackers to swarm, smother, get to the ball, keep it long, for a defense anyway, manageable down distance. You want 2nd and 8. You want 3rd and 7s. So pass rushers aren't going to help you a whole heck of a lot in that regard on 1st and 2nd down with, accepting for different, game situations.
The 2007 Giants are the prime example of what a pass rush can do for you. And that helps out your secondary more so than your inside linebackers. When you can rush the quarterback, it could take a second away from pass coverage, and a second is eternity in defensive terms. I think the pass rush is going to help the Broncos defense overall, but like you just hinted at, Chad, what is the best way to beat the blitz? run right at it. Base defense, quick passes, 3-step drops. If teams don't allow Von Miller and Bradley Chubb to get to the quarterback, it's not going to mitigate anything. They're still going to have to hold up an inside linebacker and the secondary. So if anything from Chubb's return and Von being Von this year, hopefully it's going to help out that secondary. But the ILBs will be on an island a lot, and it's up to them in the scheme to make up for that.
Big Smooth 84 on Twitter wants to know, have you heard how PJ Locke is doing? I haven't heard anything. I've heard his name mentioned a couple of times, once even by a coach. He's okay. It's the pecking order goes like this, it seems like. Beyond, of course, Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson, Trey Marshall is head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of vying for that third safety job. And then you got your PJ Locke. You got actually Elijah Holder is the next guy. So if they had to form a roster today, 53 guys, you'd have Trey Marshall and Elijah Holder as those backup safeties. But PJ Locke, I haven't heard much good or bad about him. And I don't know, you can kind of read into that what you will, my friend.
No news is bad news when you're a young guy with no preseason. If he's not making waves at training camp, he's going to be a final cut and maybe a practice squad guy at best. But, basically for now, just another jag on the roster, Chad.
Jeff C. jumping in on Super Chat. Appreciate that, bro.
Thank you, Jeff.
Prediction for the first game, is it a win or is it a loss? Zach and I have both predicted a win for the season opener in our way too early prediction. Now, we're going to re-examine that on the doorstep of the season. We'll unveil our official prediction for 2020 that we will want you guys to all kind of hold our feet to the fire on. But, Zach, have you seen anything yet that would make you change your mind on the Broncos finding a way to win what is sure to be a very tough game?
Right, yeah. I'm not going to predict a blowout. I think the Broncos will win this game, but it could be sloppy. It could be defensive-oriented. It could be a struggle till the fourth quarter. Could come down to a McManus field goal. I think the Broncos will emerge victorious, but not by any means for either team will it be a clean, 100% perfect game. There's going to be turnover, sloppy play. I mean, everywhere around the NFL, week one is going to be a crap show, and I think the Broncos will just kind of eke out a win in week one. Don't underestimate how motivated Jarrell Casey is going to be in that game. I think he makes his Bronco debut with authority. I think Broncos fans are going to see, look, Derek Wolfe, very good player in his own right. Shelby Harris, solid player in his own right. And even Malik Jackson, good player when he was here in Denver. But there's a big difference between any of those three names I just mentioned and Jarrell Casey. And I think Broncos fans are going to see the difference quickly in that season opener. Just in training camp, dude, he's dominating. Yes.
He's eating guys' lunch. And, the Broncos have two very good interior guards on that first team in Dalton Reisner and Graham Glasgow. And, Casey's just making it very clear, very evident of his 10 years in the NFL and just how good of a defensive tackle he really is.
I think I wrote this in my Kelberman's Corner prediction for the Titans game that he's going to have an instant impact. I can see a sack fumble on Ryan Tannehill. He's going to show the Titans shouldn't have traded him away and not for a 7th-round pick for a 5-time Pro Bowler. Big-time revenge game for Jarrell Casey.
All right, let me see here. Appreciate the kind words, Kathy. We do appreciate you. Here is Dennis Woods, one of our superstars. Appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, Dennis.
He says, I missed the last few pods celebrating 50 years of marriage. Wow.
God bless you,
Dennis. That is an achievement. Yes. Congratulations to you and the missus, and our best regards. That's great. Appreciate you guys getting me caught up. Hadn't heard about the injuries. Yeah, sorry to be the bearers of bad news. Love this MHH family. Hashtag Denver Broncos for life. Hashtag state of being. So that would put Dennis up there a little bit in age, which to me, it's great to see a Broncos fan that's not in that, 23, 24 age to 44, which is 70% of all digital sports media is consumed by that age bracket. I love seeing people that are older and younger seeking out content and information and knowledge on their team.
Here's to 50 more, Dennis.
Amen. All right, we're sitting here at 57 minutes, so let me jump down, make sure we're not – whoops, grab that one again, John. And as Christy said, happy anniversary. Let me make sure we're not missing anybody. King Hicks rejoins the live chat stream and then jumps in on Super Chat because he's just that kind of guy. Appreciate you, my friend. We have missed you. He says, I've truly missed my MHH family. Hashtag Broncos world. Hope all is well and everyone's staying safe through these crazy times. This, my community. Hashtag Chad and Zach rule. Yeah, man, we've missed you. And, the feeling is mutual, not just with us, but the community's missed you as well.
And hope you can stick around. I mean, the season's about to start, King. It's going to be an exciting year for the Broncos, so we hope to see you in these chats. You're always a valued member of the community.
We got Zeus McPeak in the house, as he's just so consistent. I think, in fact, yesterday was like the first – pretty sure we missed Stu yesterday. But either way, it was like the first one in a long time I can recall Stu missing. We call him Zeus McPeak for a reason. Up there on MHH Mount Rushmore. And we love you, buddy. We appreciate you. Hope you're all settled down there in Texas. And I'm getting ready to debut the collection of little, keepsakes that you sent. So I'll be showing that on the podcast here very soon.
Yeah, Stu, I don't know where you are in Texas now, but I hope you stay safe with those double hurricanes, those dueling storms out there. I don't know what's going on in your neck of the woods, but I hope all is well, Stu. Thank you so much.
John, do you have Christie's super? Because I'm not seeing it in my thank you. There's Christy just showing love as she is wont to do. Just the queen of MHH, top roping it like she does. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
And, we appreciate you and everything you bring to this community as well. And, geez, Zach, I don't know what we'd do without the great ladies of the community, from Christy to Bobby to Kathy to I don't know where Angela went. I don't know where trying to think some others. What was her name? Michaela. Remember Michaela? What happened to Michaela? I don't know. She was so consistent. But my suspicion, and I will be proven right on this, is when the games roll back around, we'll see everybody that we've been used to seeing in the chat stream right back in it with us. So, all right, let's see here. Let me make sure we're not missing anybody. I think there's one or two more that are stacked up. Dion. There's Dion. Thank you, Dion, for your support, my friend. With the way Philip Lindsay has been treated, and even if the Broncos throw out a deal, do you think he'll just walk and go to another team? I don't think he's that guy, but right. I know he's pissed. And, here's the thing, though. That's not happening anytime in the near future. After this season, he becomes a restricted free agent. So the Broncos have all of 2020 and all of 2021 to kind of weigh, hey, we went in big money on Melvin Gordon, and we have Philip Lindsay, on a relatively team-friendly deal. Which one do we want to try and bring back long-term? I remain steadfast that is going to be Philip Lindsay when the time comes. It's just he's going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, my first thought was he's not that type of guy. And if you would have asked me a year ago, would he done that, I would have said absolutely 100% no way. But like you said, he's ticked off now, and he should be, Chad. I think if another team came calling and the Broncos still won't up the ante, if they're still shortchanging him, I could see him walking away from Denver. No hard feelings, no bad blood, just doing what's best for me and my family. I think he's more committed to Denver than he isn't, but not paying him and signing Melvin Gordon, it caused a wedge, I think, between the Broncos and Lindsay, at least from Lindsay's point of view.
Trust has to be a factor for Philip when it comes to the Broncos, because they also lied to him in the draft. They told him they were going to take him in the 6th or 7th round, that he was not going to get out of the draft. He wasn't going to fall completely out of the draft. And they ended up taking David Williams, who lasted all of 1 month in training camp and then was cut. And so I don't blame if Philip Lindsay questions and wonders how much he can trust the Broncos when they tell him things. I mean, John Elway on December 30th telling fans, yeah, we're going to take a hard look at getting Philip Lindsay an extension. He's outkicked his coverage. He's definitely outplayed the money he's earned. I mean, just look at it right now. Back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons for Philip Lindsay. He's making $750K, which to the average Joe, that's a lot of money. But compared to Melvin Gordon swooping in, bringing in $7-8 million on the cap this year is what he'll take home. I mean, it's actually just gross. That money should go to Philip Lindsay for what he's done. But, that's just the way of the NFL. If you're Philip Lindsay, you just have to know that your time will come. Say your prayers that you stay healthy. And other than that, just keep doing what you do, and the reward will come.
$750,000 in NFL dollars is like a $30,000 a year salary in normal people dollars. So it really is shortchanging him for what he's brought to the table. And he's worth way more than that. And I think he sees the Justin Simmons not getting a deal. No one from the Broncos in-house getting a new contract. It's not just him. I think he blames, or if there's any sort of discontent, I think it's with Elway, not necessarily the Broncos. I don't see him walking away. I do think, though, as do you, Chad, he will prove everyone wrong this season. And I think make Melvin Gordon the 1B in this rushing attack.
Yeah, so we cleared that up for you. He says, I think he's more so upset than Cecil Lammey had mentioned. And yeah, I do. I think you're right. All right, we're running out of time. By the way, Jordan Cordova there just pointing out the fact that Cody Latimer was released by Washington.
Nope.
No surprise. And the Broncos signed another Cody. I don't know if we got a chance to talk about that last night when having Zachary on. But
Cody White
signed a Cody White yesterday, rookie out of Michigan State. Maybe we touched on it. Had a couple catches today from what I'm told, so we'll see. Chris Hernandez jumping in again. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. Looking forward to, on the next podcast, having Chris on. Click those little thumbs up, MHH fam. Agreed, and it's especially crucial on Facebook and YouTube, guys. Make sure you like this video before you bounce on out. BG jumping back in. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Brian.
His own prediction, Zach, for week 1. I honestly think we will handle the Titans with ease, he says. So with ease, I don't know about that, but I do think they come out on top.
100%. Yeah, they're going to handle Tennessee. I just don't know about, with I think like a 19-16 type game. Broncos win. Sloppy.
Jordan says Broncos are going to expose Ryan Tannehill as a one-year wonder. He had 1 or 2 years in Miami for what it's worth. He couldn't sustain it, though, and injuries here and there. But, the Broncos didn't seem to have much problem with him in that week 6 game last year, their second win of the season. They didn't get their second win of the season until week 6. Anyway, thanks, Jordan, for your comments and whatnot. Holden Adams jumping in. Appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, Holden.
Super chat. She says, just showing some love. We love you back, my friend. It all adds up and makes a big difference on what we are able to do for you guys. So we really appreciate you. But I think that does it, Zach. I think we've caught up with all of our great superstars here. We don't leave anyone out in the cold. And we're going to get out of here for tonight. I can already feel my voice starting to go out, so it's pretty good timing to sign off for tonight. But we'll be back in the saddle Wednesday night. Well, Zach and I will have Chris Hernandez on for the 10th installment of our Superstar Series. And then in the meantime, though, don't miss Building the Broncos tomorrow night. I don't know what they have on deck for you as far as topics. They'll be, I'm sure, covering whatever news comes out of Tuesday from Broncos camp, but make sure you stay tuned and participate in that conversation. Always good information and knowledge getting dropped on Building the Broncos. In the meantime, make sure you're following the podcast on Twitter at HuddleUpPod and also at Mile High Huddle. You can see where to follow my partner here, Zack Kelberman, on Twitter at Kelberman NFL, myself at Chad N. Jensen, and then also throw a follow John's way at John K. MHH. Great follow on Twitter. Trust me on that. But we got to get out of here for now. So thanks to each and every one of you for spending some time with us here again tonight. Mile high salute to our Super Chat superstars, and also a mile high salute to our Facebook supporters and those of you that send us stars on Facebook as well. We're still trying to figure out how to work that into the podcast, but thank you. We appreciate you guys. And Zach, have a great start to your week, bro.
You too, Chad, and hopefully by Wednesday, DeMar Dotson gets first-team reps. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Fingers crossed.
Amen. All right, gang, we're out of here. For Zack Kelberman, I'm Chad Jensen. We will see you.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.